In early July 2025, at the Port of Los Angeles, dozens of containers sit untouched, not due to delays, but because there's no one left to receive them. Inside a shuttered auto parts plant in Indiana, the conveyor belts are still lit, but the sound of labor is gone. A whiteboard at the entrance quietly reads, "Orders this month, 0." These aren't isolated failures. They're symptoms of something deeper. A slow, silent unraveling of the American industrial core, and it began with a signature. They didn't all shut down at once, they just stopped calling back. In June 2025, Electra Motors laid off 1,200 workers at its Ohio facility. No warning, no final contract, just a text. Operations suspended until further notice. Across the Midwest, machinists, welders, line operators, skilled hands once fueling the heart of American industry, found themselves suddenly idle. They didn't lose their jobs because demand disappeared. They lost them because materials got too expensive to use. The Institute for Supply Management reported that U.S. manufacturing activity shrank again in June, marking its fourth consecutive month of contraction, with its Purchasing Managers Index dropping to 49.0. Orders are down, inventories are frozen, the work simply stopped. At Savannah Port, incoming containers from Southeast Asia dropped by 31% in Q2 2025. Forklifts stand motionless, warehouses echo empty. American factories can no longer rely on global parts, but they're also struggling to afford domestic alternatives, especially as steel tariffs doubled from 25% to 50% in June. According to the National Association of Manufacturers, 89% of producers reported higher operational costs due to tariffs. A small tool and die business in Wisconsin stated, "We can't quote jobs anymore. The material price we quote today may be obsolete tomorrow." Capital investment is vanishing. The Bureau of Economic Analysis noted a sharp drop in private investment in equipment for Q1. When producers can't predict tomorrow's input cost, they stop producing. Without formal declarations or press briefings, foreign partners are quietly recalibrating their maps. Japan's Umeda Components shut its Texas factory in May, relocating operations to Vietnam, not for labor savings, but to avoid tariff volatility. The European Union increased sourcing from Canada and ASEAN nations, explicitly citing unstable U.S. policy shifts. Even America's closest allies, Germany, South Korea, are now building twin supply chains, one for the U.S. and one for everyone else. The World Trade Organization observed a significant fragmentation in supplier networks, with reduced reliance on the U.S. across pharmaceuticals, machinery, and rare metals. An official told the Financial Times, "No one formally exits the American market, they simply stop calling back." This isn't a crash, it's a slow, precise withdrawal, like a limb being amputated without bleeding. And it's happening quietly, between empty factories and silent phones. It began with a pen stroke. On June 4, 2025, President Trump signed a proclamation doubling tariffs on imported steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%, targeting key suppliers from China, Mexico, and South Korea. His message was clear: we will bring back American manufacturing no matter the cost. But that cost came fast. Before manufacturers could ramp up production, raw material costs surged. Complex supply chains cracked under uncertainty. Within weeks, U.S. equipment investment declined. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, private sector spending on machinery and tools dropped significantly in Q1 2025. Instead of hiring, companies paused. Instead of reshoring, they offshored further, seeking predictability over patriotism. The administration called it economic nationalism, but for small factories in Indiana or metal shops in Ohio, it felt more like economic exile. No one declared they were leaving America, they just stopped calling back. Inside a former assembly line in Michigan, the lights are still functional, but they stay off because no one bothers to flip the switch anymore. A small placard hangs above the door, "Final shift, May 17, 2025. It wasn't sabotage, it wasn't protest, it was erosion, slow, systematic, and silent. Manufacturing doesn't vanish overnight, it decays, first in numbers, then in presence, and finally in memory. But the impact spreads beyond factory floors. Job training programs lose students. Logistics firms scale down fleets. Even trade schools are canceling welding certifications for lack of demand. Tourism slows as industrial cities rust from the inside. Foreign students reconsider schools in a country that feels adrift. Diplomatic partners rewrite agreements, removing Made in USA from their procurement forecasts. Because what the world sees in America's factories is what they start expecting from America's future. Export is power. Tourism is image. Education is trust. And trust is fading.